It's always really fun to see characters from different franchises meet up, but it also leads you to wonder, how is this possible? Do these worlds coexist? Why do they look so different? Do they notice the different art styles? Is this canon? Most of these questions are not answered due to the one-off nature of these crossovers, but they do contribute to some really bizarre episodes. So today, PhantomStrider and I will be looking at 10 of the most insane crossovers in kid shows, and seeing just what makes them so surreal.
Thanks for having me on the show. Let's get started.
It's time for some shell shock!
What are those things?
I can't believe it, but I think they're...
It's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles!
The Power Rangers meet the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Throughout the 90s, you'd be hard-pressed to find two franchises more popular than Power Rangers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were everywhere, from action figures to movies to video games. So it only made sense to have a crossover, right? Only one problem. The Power Rangers are live-action actors, while the Turtles are cartoon characters. But luckily for the producers, a live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show was airing at the same time, known as Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation, which was even produced by Saban Entertainment, the studio behind Power Rangers. The Next Mutation was known for having some of the worst costumes in the franchise's live-action history, as well as including a fifth female Ninja Turtle named Venus. The strange campiness inherent in the Next Mutation made it the perfect candidate for a crossover with Power Rangers, which occurred during the Power Rangers in Space series in the episode Shell Shocked. In this episode, the villainous Astronomina summons another team of teen heroes in order to finally defeat the Power Rangers. For some reason, out of the entire galaxy, she chooses the Ninja Turtles. After brainwashing them, the Turtles and the Rangers go head to head. However, an electromagnetic storm causes the Turtles to break free from their trance and join forces with the Rangers in order to take down Astronomina. After saving the day and becoming best friends, the Rangers decide to help the Turtles make it back to New York. But not before they try to get out some space surfing.
The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy meets The Kids Next Door. In 2007, Cartoon Network decided to cross over two of their most popular cartoons in the form of The Grim Adventures of the Kids Next Door. The episode kicks off with Billy fucking something up as usual. He gets Grim's scythe stuck in his dad's lucky pants and can't get him out. So what does he do? He calls upon the help of the kids next door. Well, actually first he calls Ed and Eddie, but he can't afford them. So he settles for the K&D.
What do you mean you're broke? Hey, if you're looking for charity, call Kids Next Door. They're cheap.
Billy goes off with the K&D, while number one stays behind dressed up as Billy in order to stall his dad. Mandy comes over and sees right through his disguise, and does what she usually would. She tortures him until he tells her everything about the kids next door. Also, Grim is completely fooled by number one's disguise.
I keep telling you I'm not Billy, and I don't have your stupid scythe!
I ain't falling for that, Billy!
He then feels pain from his scythe, which number one realizes must mean that the other K&D members and Billy are in trouble. The delightful children from down the lane have been using a machine to fuse things together, and Billy accidentally gets fused with the scythe, the lucky pants, and the delightful children into a being called the Delightful Reaper. Mandy eventually takes over the kids next door and even fuses herself with the Delightful Reaper in order to control it. But Billy's dad comes to the rescue, or rather for his lucky pants, and rips them off the Delightful Reaper, leaving it defenseless.
Super Skeleton Sword Strike!
The episode ends with Billy's dad punishing number one for stealing his lucky pants, mistaking him for Billy. Despite heavily focusing on Billy, Mandy, and the kids next door, the special was marketed as the amazing colossal crossover due to the cameo appearances of many other Cartoon Network characters. For instance, when the Delightful Reaper falls apart, some of the kids that it fused with were apparently Adam from My Gym Partner's a Monkey, Goo from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Dexter, Dee Dee, and Mandark from Dexter's Laboratory, the Powerpuff Girls, and Eddie. Additionally, 5 different title cards for other fake crossovers appeared during the end credits, such as Ed, Eddie, and Mandy, Evil Camp Cardinal, Class of Number 3000, My Gym Partner's a Mandark, and Samurai Mac. And it seems like Cartoon Network is keeping the spirit of these fun crossovers alive, with the upcoming OKKO crossover.
I understand you plumbers can fix anything mechanical. I need an emergency adjustment. The name is Gadget. Inspector Gadget.
Inspector Gadget meets the Mario Brothers. You may be thinking to yourself that Super Smash Bros. Is the most ambitious crossover that the Mario Brothers have ever appeared in. But you would be dead wrong. Sure, it's cool to see him on the same screen as Pikachu, Megaman, and Sonic. But what about Inspector Gadget? That's right, the crossover you've been waiting for has fully been realized. Inspector Gadget was in need of repairs, so he drops by the Mario Brothers plumbing shop for help. Despite being a highly advanced cyborg, he decides to ask the plumbers to fix him. Makes sense. Despite these characters being animated in their respective series, this crossover was live action and took place in brief segments during the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, where Mario and Luigi worked in their plumbing shop in Brooklyn. Since Deke Entertainment produced both Inspector Gadget and the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, as well as seeing Gadget as their company mascot for some reason, it only made sense in their eyes to make some sort of crossover. Why not an animated one? No clue. The animated series produced by Deke were always very tight on budget, so perhaps it was just cheaper to do a live-action crossover. The two series crossed over twice, with the first being in the episode Defective Gadgetry, where Mario and Luigi screw up their repair of the Inspector so badly that he assumes Dr. Claw hired them to intentionally destroy him. Well, actually that does sound kinda clever. The second episode he appeared in was Treasure of the Sierra Brooklyn, where the brothers call upon the Inspector to help them follow a treasure map. Strangely enough, Inspector Gadget appears in his animated form on the DVD menu for the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, Mario's greatest movie moments, where he explains how to navigate the menu.
Gadget here. Welcome to the main menu of this disc. All around me on the main menu are buttons. These will give you the ability to do all sorts of neat things.
It's an interesting crossover for sure. Something that will never, ever happen again, given how overprotective Nintendo is of Mario these days.
Lilo and Stitch meets Kim Possible, the Recess Kids, the Proud Family, and American Dragon Jake Long. A year after its release in 2002, Lilo and Stitch received a spin-off series airing on the Disney Channel, as is usually the case with most of their films. The series followed the same cast of characters from the film, hunting down the other 625 experiments that preceded Stitch. In the show's second season, a few interesting episodes aired. 4 episodes were created that crossed over into other popular Disney Channel shows at the time: American Dragon Jake Long, Recess, Kim Possible, and The Proud Family. Despite all 5 of these shows having radically different art styles, they're all thrown in together without any changes or adjustments to make them fit better on the same screen. But all in all, that doesn't really matter because what we got were 4 pretty cool episodes. The concept behind these crossovers, according to executive producer Jess Winfield, were inspired by the original interstitial teaser trailers for the original movie. These were the trailers where Stitch appeared in films like Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin, causing chaos. The first crossover episode, titled Morpholomew, has Jake Long, Spud, Trixie, and Foodog traveling to Hawaii in order to investigate magical creatures causing havoc there, which turns out to be one of the experiments. They actually mistake Stitch as some sort of deformed leprechaun at first. Interestingly enough, Miranda Cosgrove makes a guest appearance in this episode right after her mainstream debut in Drake and Josh.
Oh, very funny. Like you don't recognize your own girlfriend?
The next episode, Spats, features the Proud Family visiting Hawaii on vacation and end up staying at Jumbo and Pleakley's bed and not breakfast. The main experiment in this episode causes people to get in fights with each other, which causes all the family problems amongst the Proud Family that one would expect. This episode isn't considered canon in the Proud Family continuity because Penny takes Spats home with her at the end of the episode, but the creature is never seen again in the main series. It would be kind of hard to explain an alien experiment suddenly appearing in a series that has absolutely no supernatural elements to it. Next up is the Recess crossover, Lax. In this episode, the Recess gang travel to Hawaii, so Gretchen can use her telescope to see what she believes is a new planet. For some reason, these 5th grade kids are just allowed to travel to Hawaii with Miss Finster. Logic doesn't really need to be applied here. Lax causes people to become lazy and ends up zapping half the town, including Stitch. So it's up to Lilo and the Recess gang to take down Lax. The weird thing about this episode is that this marks the last appearance of the Recess kids on television. The final crossover episode, Rufus, is a crossover with Kim Possible, and perhaps the most jarring differences in art style. In this episode, Lilo contacts Kim Possible for help. After Stitch is kidnapped by Dr. Draken and Shigo, Jumbo mistakes Rufus for Experiment 607, Launch, who Rufus looks remarkably similar to. After clearing up some misconceptions about Rufus and saving Stitch, they all hula together and have a good time. It's about as stereotypical as crossovers can get, but you know what? Sometimes that's okay. If it's fun and not harming any of the shows, then why not?
You're wearing cake. Vanilla, my favorite.
That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana. On July 28, 2006, Disney Channel aired a 3-part special tied together as a movie called That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana. Starting out with the first episode, Checkin' Out, we follow Raven organizing a photo shoot for a fashion line for young men at the Tipton Hotel in Boston. Of course, she completely botches everything up and needs new models on the fly. Cue Zach and Cody. Despite the two not being the original models, they turn out to be even better, and everything seems to be working out fine. That is, until Raven misses her flight home, since she didn't realize that Boston time is 3 hours ahead of San Francisco time. This leads directly into the second episode, where we get the full title of That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana. Jeepers, that's a mouthful. Now, this being a Disney crossover, everyone from each show immediately becomes absolute best friends in the whole wide world, despite never ever meeting before. So Raven decides to hang out with Zach, Cody, and the rest of the gang. Maddie tricks London into wearing one of Raven's original designs, which at first she is mad about since she only wears clothing by famous designers, but soon changes her mind when Hannah Montana checks in and admires the dress she's wearing. We then go straight into the third and final episode, On the Road Again. Hannah Montana befriends Maddie, who is a huge fan of her father's music. Hannah then believes that her dad must have given up his music career to focus on hers. This last episode is the least crossover-ish of the three, as it's essentially just a Hannah Montana episode with Maddie from The Sweet Life thrown in. In fact, all three of these episodes are pretty disconnected from each other, with only very loose plot threads tying them all together. Still, the special was pretty successful for Disney, garnering around 7 million viewers. This led to another crossover down the road titled Wizards on Deck with the Hannah Montana. Poor Raven gets the shaft, but that's okay. I personally don't think she was missing out on much.
Ferb, are you expecting someone?
Not them.
Phineas and Ferb meet Spider-Man, Iron Man, Hulk, and Thor. On August 31st, 2009, the Walt Disney Studios bought out Marvel Entertainment, and the course of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was changed forever. Disney now had access to almost the entire library of Marvel comics and characters. So what was the first big grandiose project they did? A crossover episode with Phineas and Ferb. Of course, there were many other Disney Marvel projects before this, but this was the first big animation-related project that the studio oversaw, as well as the first crossover of a Marvel and Disney property since the merger. In this episode, Dr. Doofenshmirtz's Power Draininator accidentally fires a beam straight to New York City, where Iron Man, Spider-Man, Hulk, and Thor are fighting off Red Skull, Whiplash, Venom, and MODOK. The beam drains the powers of the heroes, leaving the villains free to escape. Nick Fury tracks the beam to Phineas and Ferb's house, and the heroes go to confront the boys. After finding out they're innocent, they team up to help the heroes get their powers back. Meanwhile, the villains visit Doofenshmirtz to thank him for his beam, but find out that he's a complete idiot. The rest of the special is what you would expect. Slapstick, jokes, and a lot of songs.
We're stealing coins from wishing wells. We're cleaning clocks and ringing bells. We're a roving pack of ne'er-do-wells, you see. My evil buddies and me.
It is pretty fun to see Marvel characters dancing to doo-wop songs, as well as seeing Venom and Red Skull ride on a tiny kiddie train. At first, many Marvel fans were apprehensive about the crossover, worrying that Disney would be kidifying Marvel. And to some extent, yeah, this special doesn't feature the heavier, more complex versions of the characters that comic book readers have come to enjoy.
Would you guys read my fan fiction? It's a story where Thor and Hulk decide to learn ice skating.
I'm sorry, but we're not allowed to accept unsolicited material.
Candace, I didn't know you were a fangirl.
Oh, sure, from way back. It started because I had to do a lot of research to get up to speed for the Momo superhero crossover event.
But it's still a lot of fun, and was received very well by adults and children alike. Superheroes are meant to be bright, colorful, and fun, and sometimes it's okay to let loose and enjoy them in a different way. A Phineas and Ferb crossover doesn't ruin the sanctity of heroes. I mean, come on, Spider-Ham existed way before Disney bought Marvel, and Disney has already more than proved themselves to be competent owners of the Marvel brand, if the MCU is any indication.
Tom and Jerry meet Willy Wonka. Many times when a crossover is announced, fans will proclaim, "Nobody asked for this. This is a terrible idea." 8 out of 10 times, the crossover turns out to be a lot of fun, or at least decent. But Tom and Jerry and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is not one of these instances. This is an awful idea in concept and execution, and its overwhelmingly negative reception have led many to question why it even exists in the first place. For starters, the film was a direct-to-DVD release in 2017, a year where nothing Tom and Jerry or Willy Wonka related was even remotely relevant. The film follows Tom and Jerry as they go through the events of the 1971 film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, except the two of them are just kind of shoehorned in? Like, really shoehorned. They just do not belong here. They're hardly ever acknowledged, and the film just continues whether they're there or not. It's almost like a full-on animated remake of the original. But then they just threw in Tom and Jerry as an afterthought.
Now the entire factory will have to be sterilized, so you get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
You're a cheat. How can you build up a little boy's hopes and then disappoint him like this?
I said good day!
The constant slapstick of Tom and Jerry is wasted here, and actually just ruins some of the more whimsical and magical moments of the original. In some instances, they set up the events of the film. For example, in this version, it's all thanks to Tom and Jerry that Charlie was able to get that extra $1 in order to buy the lucky Wonka bar. Well done, Tom and Jerry. Each memorable moment is recreated here, but nothing is ever done in a way that makes you think, yes, this needed to be animated and also feature Tom and Jerry. It's just the same movie, but in animated form. The only true addition here is the inclusion of more Slugworth scenes, where he tries to take down Tom and Jerry. Even singing an evil reprise of Veruca Salt's song during the chase scene for some reason.
Scrum-diddly, umptious and vonka, so scrumptious, gobstoppers or go bust, give it to me.
Pink macaroons and a million balloons and performing baboons and give it to me now.
Again though, this makes absolutely no sense, since the whole point of the Slugworth character was to act as a test of trustworthiness for the children. He's not truly evil, it's all in the act for the children. Why is he chasing cats and mice? It's a complete mess. A mess that has no business existing. But it does, so we may as well at least enjoy the creepy faces that Wonka makes.
Jimmy Neutron, boy genius.
Timmy Turner, boy!
The Jimmy Timmy Power Hour. Don't lie, this was the hypest shit back then. In 2004, Nickelodeon released the first in a trilogy of crossovers between the Fairly OddParents and the Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, in the aptly titled Jimmy Timmy Power Hour. Given that Fairly OddParents was 2D and Jimmy Neutron was 3D, combining them together in a single special would be quite a challenge for both of the studios involved. Despite all the odds, they came through with a very cool concept. Timmy gets stuck in Jimmy Neutron's 3D world, and Jimmy is stuck in the Fairly OddParents' 2D world, both recreated in each other's respective animation style. The first Power Hour was very well received, leading to an additional 2 specials to be created, Jimmy Timmy Power Hour 2 When Nerds Collide, and Jimmy Timmy Power Hour 3 The Jerkinators. There were a few drawbacks, however. A significant more amount of time was spent in the 2D world in the sequel specials, given how difficult and time-consuming it was to create a new 3D model for every Fairly OddParents character. Also, it was just easier to make the Jimmy Neutron characters 2D than it was to make the Fairly OddParents characters 3D. Timmy just doesn't look like a human in 3D. Despite those drawbacks, these specials were very exciting, and nothing quite like them has been seen from Nickelodeon yet.
Scooby Doo meets just about every single person in the world. There are a few guaranteed things that occur in life. The sun will rise each morning, the stars will shine at night, and Scooby Doo crossover movies will continue to be made until the inevitable heat death of the universe. Here's a brief list of all the fictional properties and real-life people that Scooby Doo has crossed over with. Batman, Johnny Bravo, Supernatural, the Harlem Globetrotters, the Addams Family, John Cena, Lego, The Undertaker, Kiss, The Three Stooges, Dynomutt, and Bobby Flay from the Food Network. Jeepers, and that's only to name a few of them. There's plenty more. Now, it would be insane to sit here and tell you about each and every one of these crossovers. Instead, we'll be taking a look at the obvious questions. Why and how? The reasoning behind many of these crossovers aren't clear, aside from the easy answer of money, and given this is Hanna-Barbera, that seems very likely. Scooby-Doo is just such an iconic brand at this point, and still so popular with kids, that crossing it over with other popular kids brands like World Wrestling and Lego makes perfect sense. The plots just write themselves. Scooby-Doo and the gangs are big fans of insert paid brand here, and go to see their insert character here. However, something spooky related to insert paid brand here happens and they all have to team up to take the monster down. Obvious jokes and hijinks ensue. This is just as true today as it was back during the early Scooby-Doo crossovers. While the Three Stooges and Addams Family aren't big at the moment, a crossover back then was huge news and got many people hyped. The quality of the episode itself didn't matter, it was what it symbolized. These crossovers are obviously successful, or they wouldn't keep making them. The Supernatural crossover was one of the most successful episodes in the series' history. While these specials are made for children, we're really not sure what the thought process was behind the upcoming Bobby Flay crossover. George and I can't imagine much overlap between people who watch Food Network and people who routinely buy Scooby-Doo crossover DVDs.
A whole bunch of random cartoon characters meet up to fight drugs. And finally, we come to what could be considered one of the most ambitious cartoon crossovers in history. This is no joke. This crossover featured an insane coming together of various franchises, studios, and outside companies. The crossover, titled Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue, featured Alf, Alvin and the Chipmunks, DuckTales, Garfield, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, the Muppet Babies, Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Slimer from Ghostbusters, the Smurfs, Mikey from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the special itself was financed by McDonald's. Hell, even then President George Bush and First Lady Barbara Bush showed up before the special began to give an opening message. So what was so important that caused all these characters to come together? The year was 1990, and the war on drugs was reaching its peak. 2 years prior, the National Youth Anti-Drug Media Campaign began to steer young and impressionable children away from the dangers of drugs. Eventually, Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue spun out of this campaign. Given the PSA nature of the special, the various studios allowed their characters and respective voice actors to be used for free. That's right, all these beloved characters came together to fight weed. Winnie the Pooh knows what weed is. This is canon. The story follows Michael, a young boy who has begun stealing money from his little sister in order to buy marijuana. The cartoons come to life from various pieces of merchandise, like the Smurfs from a comic and Garfield from a lamp. Michael's friends in an anthropomorphic cloud of smoke named Smoke tempt him to switch from weed to crack. He never ends up doing it, but the Cartoon All-Stars aren't convinced, and decide to sing a whole song about how to say no. They then torment Michael into being scared straight.
What do you see?
Me. I see me.
Wrong! Flag on the play, 10-point penalty.
Who's that?
Well, it's not Freddy Krueger. This is you.
Alf shows him a mirror of himself in the future as a corpse-like version of himself. Daffy Duck then does the same thing, showing him his future as a bedridden old sack of shit. With the cartoon all-stars successfully scaring the hell out of Michael, he decides to stop using drugs for good. Over the years, the sheer ridiculousness and over-the-top nature of this special has come under fire, and most people agreed it hasn't really aged well. For starters, Michael's friends are giving him crack and weed for free. Nobody does that. The special also shows that using weed will turn you into a violent, crazy walking zombie. This is fear-mongering, and much like other school specials on drugs, it completely backfired. Also, McDonald's? Really? McDonald's is the one talking about healthy lifestyles? All in all, it's a bizarre piece of cartoon history that was given one VHS release and then never seen again. No DVD, no reruns, nothing. This is mostly due to the legality of all these characters coming together, and how they can only appear together for a limited amount of time. Corporations getting in the way of their own ham-fisted messages. Name a more iconic duo.